de mi corazón.
Congressman, thank you so much for being on the program. What a interesting time here as we see the really wonderful family picture of the Biden family here unraveling in Delaware. I'm sure you've been following this case. Your main takeaways for Hunter.
Well, I mean, look, this is, I think in the broader context, I always come back to this case is brought by David Weiss, but remember what David Weiss tried to do last summer. He tried to get the sweetheart deal where nothing was going to, Hunter Biden was basically going to get charged with a couple misdemeanors last year. And only after the whistleblowers came forward, Mr. Shapley, Mr. Ziegler, and pointed out all the crazy things done in this investigation by David Weiss over a 4-year time frame, did it all blow up. And then, and only then, did David Weiss go to the Attorney General and say, hey, I need to be named special counsel. And the Attorney General does just that, names the guy who tried to get the sweetheart deal that was laughed out of court by Judge Noriega in the Delaware court. He's the guy who gets named special counsel. So we'll see what happens in this case. You know, it's on the gun charge, and there's some people who think that the Second Amendment, and there's some concerns there. But we'll see what happens there. I think the bigger one, frankly, is the tax charge case out in California. But we'll see. What I know is when Hunter Biden testified in front of our committee, in his deposition, and his uncle James Biden as well, they said things that just do not look like they stack up, do not look like they're accurate. That's why we sent the referral.
Yeah, so I want to cover that. We'll pop the news up here. Can you talk us through this referral and why that these two Biden agents inside of the Biden crime family were sent these referrals to the DOJ? What is the basis of these referrals?
Well, the stories we got from the Bidens relative to meetings that took place in Los Angeles don't square up with other people we've deposed and documents we have. And then relative to Hunter Biden, he said he wasn't on one of these companies, wasn't one of the chief people in one of these companies, when in fact he was, and that's where a lot of the money was run through. And finally, maybe the one that's most interesting to me, the now somewhat famous text message where he says, I'm sitting here next to my father and you better get the money. He was talking with the Chinese energy company official. He told us during his deposition, I was talking to a different Zhao. It was like, he made it sound like, you know, the name was like Smith in the United States. There's all kinds of Smith, and I had the wrong Smith in my phone, in my contacts. Well, everything else we've seen says, no, you did it. You were talking to that individual, saying the things you were saying. So we've caught him in a number of those kind of things, and that's why, again, when you come in front of Congress and you raise your hand, you take the oath, you're supposed to be accurate, honest, and tell the truth, and it looks like he did not do that.
Do you expect any movement at the DOJ for this?
No.
Is this a referral that can stay over into a second Trump administration?
Yes. The answer to the last question is yes. The answer to the first question is no. But it can, like I said, it can be held over, and we'll see what the next administration, the next Attorney General, if they want to pursue it, we'll find out. But what we do know is they weren't straightforward with us in their deposition.
Why do Republicans get locked up for things like this, but not Democrats?
Because most Americans now understand, polling shows this, there's a double standard of justice in America, and it's not supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be equal treatment under the law. The Lady Justice is supposed to be blind. That's why the blindfold is on her. But that's not the case. And again, the primary example is President Trump. But it also it's broader than that. But you think about President Trump. I always point out, Fani Willis. You talk about politics. Fani Willis starts her investigation in February 2021. She doesn't bring charges against President Trump until after he declares he's running for president. Alvin Bragg says first he campaigns that I'm going to get Trump. Then he gets in office and sees the case and sees how ridiculous it is. And he says, I cannot envision a world where I would indict President Trump and call Michael Cohen as a prosecution witness. And then he does just that after President Trump announces he's running for president. And then, of course, Merrick Garland doesn't appoint Jack Smith special counsel until 3 days after President Trump announces he's running for president. These are all political. The country sees that. That's the problem with our justice system, and it's why we've been pushing back so hard. It's why we've called Colangelo and Bragg to come testify. It's why we want to bring in Brad Smith, the Federal Elections Commission expert, the guy who understands campaign finance, who the judge in New York wouldn't even allow the defense, President Trump's defense team, to put on the stand. We want to give him an opportunity to testify later this summer, and we're going to have him in as a witness as well.
Is Colangelo and Bragg going to? I mean, they have to. No. Yes.
Well, the way we normally work is there's this process you have to go through typically, because if you wind up in court, you want to show that you've tried to accommodate. So you ask them. If they tell you to take a hike, then you subpoena them. If they don't show up, you move to contempt, and then you go from there. And then that lays the groundwork if, in fact, you have to go to court. So we've asked them. They're supposed to get back to us tomorrow. We'll find out what they say. My guess is they're going to say we're not coming, and then we'll look to use the compulsory ways to get him here, and we'll see what happens from there.
Is there the Colangelo situation is so strange to me. Is there any explanation professionally to leave your pensioned job as the number 3 guy at the DOJ you've worked for your entire life? I mean, you're the under assistant attorney general, right? Like, this is a really powerful position, and then go work in some rat-infested backwater, dingy office in Lower Manhattan. It defies reason, Congressman, for somebody to do that. And could a move like that have been made without the direct approval of Merrick Garland?
Well, he told us under oath this week that he had nothing to do with that, but it does sort of raise the general question. You went from one of the high-ranking officials in the Justice Department to the Manhattan DA's office. Well, we all know why he went. He went to go prosecute President Trump, and he went after the guy who wrote the book, Mr. Pomerantz, who was the assistant DA for Alvin Bragg, resigned because he thought Alvin Bragg wasn't going to bring the case at the time. He resigned. And then Colangelo, I think what happened is when he sees Alvin Bragg is going to pursue it, that's when he goes, because it's all about him going after President Trump. And we should back up. Remember, this is a guy who worked in the Obama administration, Colangelo did. Then he went to work in the New York Attorney General's office, so he's working for Letitia James. Then he comes back into the Biden Justice Department. When Pomerantz leaves, thinking that it's not going to happen, and there's an opening there, and then Alvin Bragg changes his mind after President Trump announces he's running for president, then Colangelo says, well, shazam, I'm going to go back to New York, and I'm going to go after President Trump. That, to me, is the most logical thing that happened here. I think anyone with common sense can see that, and it sure looks political. And we asked the Attorney General what kind of communications may or may not have happened between Alvin Bragg's office, Fonnie Willis's office, and the Department of Justice, and he didn't know. He said, I don't know, but we want to find out, and we've asked for that information months ago, and we're going to pursue that as well.
It defies reason to assume the narrative that Biden had nothing to do with these prosecutions. The New York Times has entire essays about Joe Biden pressuring Merrick Garland, and they're splattering it on the front page with these ominous photos of Merrick Garland. Like you've gone back and revisited them and read them on air. You can see the pressure campaign in public, like on the pages of the New York Times to go prosecute Trump.
Not to mention Nathan Wade on the taxpayer dime, working for Fonnie Willis, comes to D.C., charges the taxpayers of Georgia, maybe in fact uses federal funds because they get grant money into their office down there. We got a whistleblower who said they misspent the grant money. Ms. Timpson, who's come forward. So Nathan Wade's coming to D.C. to talk with, it looks like, the January 6th committee, the White House, and the DOJ. I mean, come on. And to talk about how they're going to go after the White House's opponent in the presidential election. It's not supposed to work that way. And it's why Americans are rightly frustrated about this double standard.
Just really quickly here, Congressman, the audience was pretty upset last Thursday. And it seems like there was a Rubicon crossed that we just can't go back from. Yeah. And now it led us to then do Friday morning's show, sort of rounding up what crimes have Democrats committed in red states. You know, and we were able to actually pretty quickly, we don't consider ourselves Rhodes Scholars around here. We went to community college in Iowa. But we were able to pretty quickly find out that Jim Biden ran a massive Medicaid and Medicare scheme out of Florida and defrauded the fine people of Florida, closed down like a ton of hospitals down here through open fraudulence and through criminal activity, and never got even a slap on the wrist for it. And that's a state crime committed right here in this territory. that Hunter Biden tried to sell LNG out of Houston and was filing paperwork in Texas left and right to try and get like all these gas lines through in Texas, and that the Clinton Foundation is still and has always been run out of Little Rock with somebody who worked in the Trump DOJ as Attorney General for that state and Sarah Sanders as governor. And so I guess I would like to give the floor to you when it comes to, it seems as though the only way you're a wrestler, the only way that you actually respect somebody is if you know that there's going to be a counter move. Is there a counter move?
Well, I mean, I think there may be, in fact. I mean, you can think of Ken Paxton in the Attorney General in Texas. Maybe, in fact, you're going to have attorney generals like him who say, like, okay, enough of this. And if we see the same kind of thing from a federal official, we're going to do the same thing in our state. I hate that's the situation we're in. But that was certainly what the Democrats coordinated with Bragg and with Willis, and then at the federal level with Jack Smith. I mean, they were throwing it all out there, hoping that one of the cases would go through. Now, the good news is the case in Miami is falling apart. I mean, Jack Smith, he actually altered the order, changed the order of the documents he seized from Mar-a-Lago. I mean, you can't do that. It's called, some people call that tampering with evidence. And I think the irony, of course, is Jack Smith mishandled the documents that he's accusing President Trump of mishandling. Go figure. So that case has fallen apart down there. Fonnie Willis' case has fallen apart. And of course, the case, Jack Smith case in D.C., the Supreme Court's looking at the immunity and what the parameters are for presidential immunity, and that's on hold. So the only case that went through is this crazy case in New York, and it's, I believe, going to get overturned at the appellate level. So, but again, you have this happening, and I assume there'll be some Republican attorney generals or DAs who say, like, enough of this. We're going to fight the same thing. We're going to fight with the same tactic. We'll just have to wait and see. Yeah,
you're from the great state of Ohio. I have a feeling there are plenty of crimes that have been committed in the territory of your state, and it'd be nice. It'd be very nice to see. It'd be nice to see, because I don't want to see it go that way either. But you gotta draw a line. And you got to hit back. Otherwise, you just keep getting bullied. And I'm sick of being bullied as a Republican.
I hear you. I hear
you. Congressman, it is the celebration of D-Day today. We've spent the first part of the show sort of covering quite an embarrassing scene with Joe Biden up there. But ending on a high note, I know you have a ton of veterans in your district. A message to them.
Well, God bless them. I mean, that greatest generation, it's always appropriate to, I think, honor and recognize courage and bravery and patriotism, which is exactly what that generation displayed, not just that day, but throughout that entire effort when they took on and defeated the evil of Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan and everything else. And today, talking about what started the liberation of Europe, amazing day. And I still remember, because it was the first election I could vote in for president was in 1984. I'm in college, and I do remember Reagan going there for the 40th, and now here we are 40 years later, and we have this celebration of the bravery of these amazing men, some of them 17, 18 years old, who God bless them, did some amazing things.
Yeah, did some amazing things. It'd be nice to have a little service back, a little nature of service instead of self-service back leading our nation. And maybe no new wars also. That'd be really refreshing to see. Congressman, you're one of the few guys that actually throw down, and we thank you for that. And it's one of the few people we can actually look to for a win every once in a while. And so we thank you, Mr. Chairman, for being on the program. Obviously, y'all know where to follow. 5 million Americans can't. 5 million Americans. 5 million. Holy God, team, we got some work to do. Holy smokes!
Well, we appreciate what you do. You present the facts in a compelling fashion, and that's important in today's world. So thank you for all the good work you do.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Godspeed.
You too.